Hi, I'm Larry Maccherone. I'm the DevSecOps transformation lead at Comcast, and I'm here to talk to you about the impact of DevSecOps Quantified. So I start this off with a little bit of a corny shtick here to sort of set the stage here. Imagine Dick Tracy in his office. It's raining outside. It's nighttime. The door opens. Her name was Big Data Analysis, and I knew she was trouble when she walked through my door, but I couldn't send her packing because she was just trying to help me out with my gal, the truth. You see, my gal, the truth, and we were going through a bit of a rough patch. I'd recently hooked up with a new crowd named DevSecOps, a well-meaning bunch, but there were a few guys in this crowd named Anecdote and Folklore and Intuition, and my gal, the truth, she wasn't always kind to these guys. So Big Data Analysis promised to help me out with that. She was going to show where my new friends were right, but that wasn't going to be good enough for my gal, the truth. She was also going to show where they were wrong. And that's where the trouble began. So stick around and I'll tell you our story. But if you're the type that doesn't like to have your beliefs challenged with data, then you better beat it, kid. Because my gal, the truth, she's a beauty, but she ain't always kind. Okay, so when I do this live, it doesn't feel quite so awkward to do the joke, the shtick, with an audience laughing, but that's the idea. So I've launched a program for DevSecOps transformation at Comcast several years ago, and now I have enough data to sort of show how effective it is, and this is the money slide for that analysis. So the teams that get to high levels of DevSecOps practice maturity have 85% lower cybersecurity risk than the teams that are at what I would call low DevSecOps practice maturity, have adopted few or none of the key practices for this. So a little bit of background on the program. We have a lot of practices in the program. This is sort of a visualization of a lot of them. And that's too much stuff to sort of talk to the development teams about. So we have this gradual way, this framework of bringing them on board that starts with, first of all, concepts that win their hearts and minds, and then helping them to sort of adopt each practice one at a time or several at a time, but not the whole list of 45 practices at once, of course. And then we help motivate the teams with management and executive sponsorship, goal setting, gamification, that sort of stuff. So I don't have time to go into the details of all these because I want to get back to the data, and 20 minutes is not a lot of time. But the one way we win the hearts and minds is we start off with this thing we call the pledge. And it starts with the word trust. We trust that engineering teams, A, want to do the right thing, and that they are in a business context that doesn't mean they always can focus on security risks, and they have to balance those against other concerns and other risks. So we're going to pledge to give you enough information that you can make those trade-off decisions, be well informed. And more importantly, what we're going to do is we're going to give you the easy button for those practices we're asking you to adopt. We're going to make the right thing to do be the easiest thing to do. And we fundamentally think of our roles no longer as gatekeepers, no longer the police, no longer the auditors, but rather we're toolsmiths and advisors. And when I show this slide to a development team, they fundamentally go, "Wow, this is different than every other cybersecurity group I've ever worked with here at Comcast." So let's get going. Let's jump on board and do that. And so then we immediately go into this workshop with the development teams. And we're basically going to ask them to mature each practice from unknown, meaning that, we haven't assessed you haven't assessed yourself on this practice yet, to are you at thoughts level for this, meaning you haven't put much thought into it, or words level, meaning you're making plans, you're in the process of sort of signing up for things, or are you in the action stage where you're in the process of adopting it? Maybe you've done it for 5 of your 7 apps, or for 50, you got in training for 50% of your people, et cetera. Or is this culture for your team? Meaning for every opportunity there is to do it, have you done it? And we literally walk teams through this table of 45 or so practices, but we focus on the 11 in the upper left corner because this is organized by the best bang for the buck. And we want this to turn green over time, starting from the upper left corner. And the primary output of this workshop is essentially a planning session where they pick one, maybe two, maybe three of these practices that aren't bright green, darkest shade of green, the culture level, that they're going to turn at least one shade of green darker in the next 90 days. And then we come back every 90 days and we coach them, help them to sort of pick another set, and they turn it green in the next 90 days. And we're not just sort of only touching with the team every 90 days. We're available to them, and we're constantly help them to onboard to these practices throughout the time continuously. And then this is sort of a summary of the primary visualizations we use to talk to executives. So we've picked the 11 practices in the upper left corner, and we've called them the essential 11. And this is a part of the organization that maybe has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different development teams. And for secret storage, they're doing really well. And for this vulnerability policy, high severity clean, they've resolved all their high severity findings. But some of these other practices need a little more work, and the executive can sort of help them to sort of motivate that, to make that happen, can set challenges for one practice at a time, for instance. And then we have this view over time. So the top line goes up as we identify more development teams on this part of the organization. The white area catches up with these gray areas when we conduct the first workshop for each team. And then the green areas obviously climb when the teams adopt those practices. So and we have a lot of visibility for management and executives to sort of help motivate the change. Okay, back to the title of this, the impact of DevSecOps Quantified, and we looked at data from 195 of the teams that have onboarded to this. We were able to map the data from 158 of those teams to certain outcome metrics like network originated scans, which is very similar to what the bad guys would do to attack you. And we considered other security risks, but most of those didn't make it into this data analysis. They will for the update for next year, though. And that's where the data comes from for this. And so this is the slide we showed you earlier, except I've relabeled the y-axis to be mean CVSS weighted vulnerabilities. And this is the way we calculate that. We're essentially taking 2 to the CVSS score for vulnerabilities that are in the applications that are owned by that team, that are visible on the wire, that can actually be detected with a very sort of simplistic scanning tool. And this 2 to the CVSS power is in the literature. Some of the researchers say it's sort of very indicative of the risk. A CVSS 10 counts for 124 1024 bad points, and a 9 is half that, and an 8 would be half that, et cetera. So it's really an exponential scale, a logarithmic scale, really, for risk, which matches the real risk. The 10 is probably twice as risky as the 9 is probably twice as risky as the 8, et cetera. So, with that chart, we can see that it's 85% lower risk. So let's drill down to the next level of quantifying these for each of the practices. And this is the list of sort of the top practices that we thought would be highly correlated. And we'll go through each of these sort of one at a time here and talk about them quickly. So I put a big asterisk on this top one, and I also put another asterisk on this bottom one. I think this top one is overstating the risk reduction because of there's sort of a covariance with the actual input metric and the output metric. It's too tightly correlated. So this is probably exaggerating the effect here. And then secrets management, the output metric didn't sort of indicate sort of exposed secrets. And so it's probably not, it's understating them. So while I show the risk reduction here, I would actually say these are all probably about equal. They're all positively good. And the accuracy of the system we're using the outcome metric is not strong enough that I could really say this one practice is 65 and this one's a 49. So while we have very high levels of confidence in the statistics, we have a very low p-value for you statisticians on the watching here for the ANOVA. The ANOVA doesn't sort of say how significant the difference is. It's just that it's not possible that that difference came about by chance, but the magnitude of the difference is not verified by the ANOVA p-value. So anyway, so let's go through these already. So having a team that knows how to capture external input and do something with it is sort of the key practice here. So a lot of teams sort of are used to the security group pinging them about things, and then they sort of like wait until there's an email from their boss or their boss's boss before they actually do something. Well, the teams that just wait till that happens are not nearly as good as the teams that have a process for actually putting those on their backlog and prioritizing that work. And that's what this first practice is essentially assessing. High severity clean is that when you run security scans like SAST tools or IAST tools or SCA tools in the case of Snyk, then you resolve those. You get those all to zero, and the first round of findings for that. Security peer review, as part of a pull request, you have somebody else who has been trained, has been through a secure coding training that's encouraged to look for security vulnerabilities as part of their code review. That is a very effective process. Secure coding training goes hand in hand with that, and that's the next one. Essentially, these two get highly correlated with most teams, where the secure code training is actually leading the security peer review, but not always. Only merge secure code. So when you get to high severity clean the first time, we're actually having teams turn on a branch protection status check that turns the merge button red, or disables it in the case of non-admins for that repo, so that they can't actually complete the merge. Even if they pass the code review, if their policy says that it's high severity clean, then they're not going to be able to click on that merge button and get their code into production. This is incredibly powerful because developers really love the code they wrote this morning, and they want to see it get in to the next higher level branch that afternoon. And so they'll jump through a lot of hoops if they get that sort of negative report on their pull request. Threat modeling is a workshop where we pretend to be an attacker, and we go through your app and we sort of try to identify the things that are not high secure, like encryption and authentication. And a production-ready security assessment is very similar, except the assessment isn't on your architecture and design; it's on the actual finished product. Most people think of this as sort of like white box pen testing. And then secrets management. Do you store your secrets in source code repositories? No, you shouldn't do that, but a lot of folks sort of do. And so using a secrets vault is sort of the way to do it. So this is all the my gal the truth. This is the kind part. The big data analysis showed where my friends DevSecOps were right. Well, what about where they were wrong? And remember, my gal the truth, she ain't always kind. Well, this came out as a bit of a surprise. So just running the scanning tool for SAST or IAST, or just running the scanning tool for software composition analysis, SCA, negatively correlated with risk reduction. So you're like, okay, wait, then why are we running these scans? Why are we running these tools? Well, let's take a look at this. So the reality is that these two practices are essentially prerequisites for getting to high severity clean and only merging secure code. And so just doing these on their own doesn't correlate. Just running the scans doesn't correlate with risk reduction. You actually have to resolve the findings that come out of these tools. And so that's why this came out the way that it did. It seems really obvious, but the reality is that we're constantly looking for quick wins. And I constantly run into parts of the organization that says, well, let's just get scanning running across all of our apps, and then we'll worry about resolving them later. Well, that's very costly from a license perspective. And if you don't have the resources to actually resolve the findings from those scans, it's incredibly wasteful. And it can be distracting to have all that stuff. Plus, as legal tells me, your liability is higher if you know about something. If you got a report from a scanning tool, but you did nothing about it for 9 months. So we don't want to roll things out that way. We really want to achieve value in one small part of the organization or with one scanning tool before we expand the scope of either to a larger number of apps or to more tools for the same apps. And so that's the focus of your spending resources. Focus on driving healthy resolution curves before you expand your scanning footprint. So that's my story here. I started with a little corniness. I'll end with a little corniness. This is actually looks like a poem, but it's really from a song. A fact without a theory is like a ship without a sail. Is like a boat without a rudder. Is like a kite without a tail. A fact without a figure is a tragic final act. But one thing worse in this universe is a theory without a fact. We've been operating on folklore and intuition and anecdote, and now it's time to upgrade your intuition to insight, replace your folklore with facts, and to swap your anecdotes with evidence. Thank you.